Hello again, everybody. The Schools Minister, Catherine McKinnell, is here with us this morning. It's good to see you. Thanks for taking the time. How are you changing the schools' accountability scheme, Ofsted?
So Ofsted's announced a consultation today on a new report card system. It's all part of a new era of school accountability and improvement to make sure that we drive those great outcomes for children wherever they are in the country and right across the country. We know that currently 1 in 3 children leave primary school without the required standards in reading, writing and maths. We know 1 in 5 children are regularly absent from school. You can't get a great education if you're not in school to get it. And we know that there are 600 schools that are persistently underperforming, and 312,000 children are in those schools not getting the school outcomes that they should. So we're determined to shine a spotlight on where schools are doing a fantastic job, but also where there's room for improvement to make sure that we get those improved outcomes for children everywhere.
A more detailed report, I believe. So how much longer will these inspectors spend at each school?
So I think the time of the inspection, that's obviously for Ofsted to determine, but what will make a difference is a more granular report of how a school's doing. The old system with single headline grades was really high stakes for schools. It was very low information for parents, and what parents are telling us is they want to know more about what their school is doing and how it's going. And we think that Ofsted obviously is consulting on this new report card, but it is a real opportunity to shine a spotlight on a much more granular range of information about a school so that we can see what's going really well and celebrate that, but also highlight where there's room for improvement and support schools with that improvement, because that's how we drive those better outcomes for children.
More detailed report obviously means that they'll have to spend longer at the school, so I'll have to ask Ofsted when they join us a little bit later on. What do you want to see come from the Prime Minister's meeting with European leaders?
I think it's really important that we continue to build strong relationships with our nearest neighbours and our big trading partners. We need to work on both reducing barriers to trade. We inherited a terrible Brexit deal from the previous government, and so we just need to improve it and work on how we break down those barriers to trade. Well, we've been very clear on our red lines that we won't rejoin the customs union, the single market, or change freedom of movement, but we can still improve on those trading arrangements, and also I think fundamentally our national security arrangements as well, to make sure that we have a really strong partnership with our European neighbours on both defence and economic security, so we can deliver on our plan for change.
But what about youth mobility?
So currently there's no plans for a youth mobility. Well, that's obviously for...
yeah, but you're a schools minister, what do you think?
Well, as a schools minister, I don't think it's for me to give a running commentary on EU negotiations. Well, I mean, there are no plans currently, and
would you support it?
That's not the government's position.
Yeah. Is it possible to please Europe and the US at the same time?
I think it's really important that we keep really strong relationships with both the EU and the US. We have a really strong trading relationship with the US as well. We have £300 billion of trade, with them £1.2 trillion invested in each other's economies. We are our strongest mutual investors, and I think it's really important that we continue to build those strong relationships. And I think that's the difference that Keir Starmer has brought to government from the chaos that we had in the past, is that actually we take a really mature approach, a relationship building approach, and really acting in the national interest to make sure that we build those strong relationships that will ultimately serve our economy, which we know is growing again, and we have falling inflation, we have wages rising finally, and we're putting the economy on a stable footing and delivering on the plan for change by working with our closest trading partners and our really close security partners too.
What about if he forces us to choose Trump?
I mean, that's hypothetical, and I can't see...
Not really, given his rhetoric over the weekend.
I can't see how we, that won't change our approach to our European neighbours and our US partners. They're all very strong partners within NATO in terms of our defence. They're very strong trading partners, and we'll continue to build those relationships in a really mature way. And I think Keir Starmer really has shown the difference, that having a Prime Minister that can work with allies and build those strong relationships can make in government. And I appreciate there is a lot of global insecurity. I understand the premise of the question, but I think if we continue to build those strong partnerships, we can really look forward to a bright trading future with our neighbours and with the US as well.
Or not, because, I mean, the rhetoric over the weekend from the President Trump is heading more and more towards trying to divide us from the European Union. Previously, your Prime Minister has said that he didn't have to choose between Europe and the US. Do you think that is going to still stand if he continues to put that wedge between us?
Well, I think the Prime Minister's taking the right approach. He's going to the European Council. He's had Chancellor Scholz here over the weekend. We have a really strong relationship. Clearly, there are many global challenges. We're still supporting Ukraine. There are many global insecurities around the world. So to build as many partnerships on a really strong footing as possible is clearly in our national interest, to build on those trading relationships, but also on our national security and defence. And obviously, we'll do whatever it takes in the national interest to secure Britain's prosperous future. OK,
public services in this country aren't good enough and cost too much, not according to me, but according to the head of the National Audit Office. Is he wrong to say that?
Well, we've seen across the board the inheritance that we've had from the last government, where public services have been underinvested in. We've seen chaos on the railways. We see NHS waiting lists. In schools, there are many challenges in terms of the infrastructure. So, I mean, the first thing we did in government was, from a schools perspective, put our schools on a firmer footing, giving a pay rise to teachers. We are committed to reducing the NHS waiting lists and investing in 40,000 appointments. There was a big investment at the budget to bring those waiting lists down. And we're also investing in technology to support improvements right across our public services. That's a really big part of reform. And obviously, we're working on the railways and bringing Great British Railways back into...
How long is all this going to take?
In order to try and put our railways back on a firmer footing.
How long is it all going to take?
We're working as hard as we can. Obviously, we've got very specific commitments as part of our plan for change to really take Britain forward, because fundamentally, we're not going to get our economy to grow when we don't have public services that underpin every aspect of our public life in this country. If people can't get their appointments, they can't get to work. If people, if the schools are falling down, children can't get a great education.
He's encouraging you to take risks.
We're invested in it.
He's encouraging you to take risks. What risks are you taking with schools, hospitals and benefits to make a change?
Well, fundamentally, we had to get at the last budget, we had to put the public finances on.
So the budget was a risk
on a much firmer footing. In order to, we had to make some difficult choices. No, it wasn't a risk, because we're very confident it's the right choice.
What risks are you taking?
Well, I'm not entirely sure what risks we should take with public services. I think they're a really fundamental part of our national fabric, and I think we need to take a really solid and strategic
are not sustainable.
Solid strategic approach to our public services to make sure they can underpin our future economic growth. We're looking at investment opportunities. We've just signed a big defence deal with Rolls-Royce, £9 billion.
That's nothing to do with welfare,
support
NHS,
our
schools.
Nuclear deterrent.
Nothing to do with the things I just asked you about.
But fundamentally, if we don't have strong national security, we can't underpin our national infrastructure here at home. We need to invest in our public services. We made those decisions at the budget. They weren't all easy choices, but fundamentally we need to underpin our national budget in order to create the solid foundations to then be able to attract that inward investment that will make our economy grow. If we get the economy growing, we can invest in our public services. But we've taken the tough decisions to make the immediate change in our NHS, in our health services, in our public transport, in order to get the economy to grow, to fundamentally secure our national security going forward and our trading relationships as well with our international partners. We are an attractive place to invest, and I think we've got every reason to look forward to a bright future.
OK, good to see you. Thanks so much indeed. Thank you.